weekends.
I had one for
You know,
kids, but
yeah, Jerry farming on weekends and that, and so
Yeah.
I don't.
between 4 and 7, there's, I'd have to take little breaks with them to keep them,
Busy and active.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we're gonna give it a couple more minutes. Best we can do is have some, hey, Craig. We have met quorum. And then the important people walk in. Dave, can you hear us now? Dave, Turk. Texting Dave, calling Dave Turk. So are we not audio? So we're now in a technical issue. We have Dave's number. We can always just group him in and.
Small call at the same time.
What's that? Yeah. Boom. Text him, let him know where you audio. We can always just call him in.
Big hammer.
Dave apparently can't hear us.
Now we're go back to your,
Hey, Candace.
stop sharing.
As soon as you make the connection, it's gonna start feeding back and it'll be a mess.
Hey Dave, I just had you on speakerphone there, trying to get the system here to work. So I'll put you on speakerphone and let us know if you can't hear anything, then if that works for you.
Okay, sure.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate you coming online with that. This is the this is the Richland County Public Safety Standing Committee. It was supposed to start at 8:30. We had a few technical problems, so we are going to get started. Can we do a roll call, please?
Henning. Woodhouse.
Present.
Turk. Cosgrove. Frank.
Here.
Severson. Fleming.
Here.
Sure you have 4 for.
Awesome. Verification of the open meeting law compliance. It's all posted. Thank you very much. Approval of the agenda. Looks like we have a 17-point agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion for the agenda.
Julie makes a motion. Looking for a second.
Second.
All right, Craig seconds. All in, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Item number 5, approval of the minutes from July 5th and July 16th, 2024 meetings. The July 16th was the special meeting for the hiring of the Sheriff's Department staff that we had prior to the county board meeting. Looking for approval of those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 5th and July 16th minutes.
Thank you, Julie. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Craig. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. This is the time for public comment. See anybody online, but right now to anybody in the public. Going once, going twice, public comment. Moving on to item number 7, reports, Sheriff Departmental activities.
So
So the monthly report for July, we had $49,779.13 in vouchers submitted. 52 52 jail bookings. Our average number of inmate population was 36.23. We had 429 complaints or calls for service for the month. Issued 70 traffic citations, 8 warnings, served 10 civil process papers, and we had 16 transports. Our average number on electronic monitoring is 7. Dispatch activity, we had 716 calls into the dispatch center, 102 calls for EMS, and 143 calls for the police department. Additionally, we met with Candace, and we've kind of went over their preliminary budget, and things are looking great with that. So, yeah. We presented 2 budgets, one with the restored position and one without the restored position. So
when you say restored position, what does that mean?
so I'm talking about the position we lost in 2009, 2010.
Okay.
So we did fund for that. And honestly, it was with a minimal increase. But obviously taking that away, there's also a decrease. But I think the total increase was around $2,000 with the position over my previous year's budget.
$2,000 increase.
Yep.
Over previous year. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So, so obviously the flip side of that is there's a decrease then if we don't fill the position, but my hope is we get it.
Okay. All right.
We have made a hire. I know Aaron included his staffing memo, so we did end up hiring Maria Oriana.
Oh, okay.
So
Very good.
she'll start next week.
Okay.
So, yep, starts on Monday, and we're excited to have her on board.
Excellent. Excellent. Does that fully staff you then?
Yep, if you look at the memo that would put us, for the first time since I've been chief deputy, that vacant sheriff office position, no.
All right.
So, we're full staff.
Well done, well done.
Finally. Fun. I like it. All right. Anything else? Department activities.
Just we're gearing up and getting ready for National Night Out Tuesday, and
Okay.
so I hope to see a good turnout there. But pretty well it for my report.
Okay. Coroner report. Anything from the coroner? Any questions for the sheriff on that before we move on? No? Okay. Coroner report. Coroner, did we get anything?
I'll be presenting on behalf of the coroner this month, and as
Awesome. Thank you.
I go through the report, it'll make a little more sense as to why.
Right.
So this is from Jim Rossick. So below you'll find the coroner's update for June and July. Please let me know if you have any questions or believe if this is anything should be added or changed. So for June of 24, we had 9 calls at the coroner's office. All were cremation. Ages of decedents range from ages of 59 to 91. 4 of the 9 cases were on hospice. 6 were heart related. 1 cancer case, 1 kidney related, and still 1 pending toxicology results. And there was 1 autopsy in June. At the end of June, there was a total of 60 cases for the year. For comparison, there were 63 cases same time last year, 52 cases 10 years ago, and 40 cases at the same time 20 years ago. In July, the office had 10 calls. They were all cremations. The ages of the decedents were 46 to 92. 7 of the 10 cases were on hospice. There's a wide range in the causes of deaths: 1 pulmonary embolism, 1 kidney related, 2 dementia related, 1 cancer, 1 heart related, 1 lung related, 1 sepsis, and 2 neurological disorders. At the end of July, we were at 70 cases for the year. In comparison, our office was at 78 cases at this time last year, 59 cases 10 years ago, and 52 cases at the same time 20 years ago. As you know, there have been some issues with the paging system and pagers utilized by the coroner's office due to lack of service in certain areas. We're pleased to now be a part of the phone paging system implemented by Richland County EMS, and thus far the system's worked well for everyone in the office.
Excellent.
EMS perspective, we started subscription with I Am Responding. We were able to bring in the coroner's office on that to make sure that they're getting all the pages that they need to be getting. Deputy Coroner Kate Lewandowski, is it Lewandowski?
So, yeah,
Okay.
got it.
So she covers the majority of weekday hours, has secured different employment, which no longer allows her to be available for calls. Jim will continue to cover weekday evenings from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. and there are 3 deputy coroners that rotate weekend coverage. Kate's exit from the department would once again leave a large gap in coverage. It says, I am pleased to announce that Emergency Services Director Michael Jessup has stepped up to offer a solution to the problem. It says willingness and ability to take on the gaps in our coverage is much needed and appreciated. So about a week before Kate had announced her departure, I had been in discussions with Jim about emergency services supporting the coroner's office a little bit more, knowing that it was a big need in the county. And they were having some gaps in covers they needed support on, and I'm here a lot, so it just seemed to kind of fit. And wouldn't you know, about a week later, Kate said she was unable to cover those weekdays, so working with James, we're going to continue 24/7 coroner coverage for the county. In closing, it says, as always, please reach out if you have any questions or concerns related to the coroner's office.
Okay. So have you been taking calls already then?
We'll start on Monday.
Start on Monday. Okay, very good. Thank you for collaborating and working together on that. That means a lot. Anything else from the coroners? Any questions on the coroner's report? Hearing none, moving forward to the circuit court judge. Is that right?
Judge has a full calendar this morning, and so she asked me to just briefly speak a little bit for her. She has been working very hard on all of the caseload. It seemed like between meetings and cases that her court calendar has been very full. We feel like we're making good progress and catching up on a lot of the old cases. I know we've been saying that, but we truly feel like we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel where things will not be quite as jam-packed as they have been these last 2 years. So she has been judge 2 years in June, so it kind of took her 2 years to really get caught up on everything. So she wanted to formally thank Randy and Darren for painting the jury room. So that was really done. We weren't really aware that was going to happen, but found out that it did happen. So thank you to that. She wanted to pass that along. She said court security is going well in the courtrooms. So that's been improving. She feels like that we're making progress and a lot of things there. So just, again, a word of thanks, and feels like things are going well with that in the courtroom. We don't have any update on the audio Zoom in the small courtroom, but it's still work in progress as far as I know. So nothing new since last month on that, but it's still work in progress. And then maybe skipping down, so we did receive the security report from Capitol Security from Tammy Johnson. It is a very lengthy report. And so her thoughts and our thoughts in that were, so we have a courthouse security meeting coming up in September. And she had told them to save everyone some time, instead of putting the whole report out to everyone, she's going to condense it a little bit. She also felt like there's some sensitive material that she would not want posted to like on the website or to everyone. So she's going to condense that, and we will present that to the courthouse security meeting in September, kind of an abbreviated version. And then that committee, the courthouse security meeting, will kind of make a recommendation to this committee. But she thought, after reviewing how lengthy and detailed it was and the materials that it contained, that might be the best route. So that would affect courthouse security report. We'll just table that to a later date. If that makes sense to everyone, why we're going that route.
Yes. Any questions on that? I think that's a good direction. Okay, do we know what date in September yet? Has it been set?
It has been set. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I didn't know it was gonna be, it's obviously gonna be after this meeting. so
Yes,
that
it
We
is.
wouldn't see anything until October.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, so maybe that could be tabled to October.
yes, that's what I'm trying to think. Okay, we'll work on that. All right. All right, anything else from,
I didn't submit, so yesterday was August 1st, and knowing how busy the county clerk's office, I didn't submit anything on my budget. I did present our preliminary budget to Candace. And actually, my line items stayed virtually the same. Actually, my overall budget decreased a little bit just because of a little decrease with health insurance and that type of thing. So the bottom line decreased just a slight amount on that, but otherwise my budget per line items are almost exactly identical to 2024.
so is that the register and probate numbers?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep. And then Candace and Derek and Tammy and Larry are all, so the judge did request a very minimal budget of around $5,000. People were kind of wondering what she was requesting, just to formally put that out there. So right now, the judge has been making requests, you know, since Clint was here and up to this year through capital improvements. And those requirements were $5,000 or more to be in the capital improvement. So she just felt like it would be nice. There's some things like reposting her chair, just different things, different maintenances that's in her chambers, in her meeting room, on her bench, in the courtroom, all of the rooms, if she could have a very small budget. And so she's requested approximately $5,000 just for where she doesn't have to ask for.
And this was brought up at the last meeting. I did speak with Candace about that, and that is in the plans at this point, in the works at this point, obviously until the budget is signed and done, but that is in the plans at this point.
Yeah, because it seemed like, and the reason behind that is that a lot of times she would make a request, for example, a small speaker on her bench. And it would come back to what budget's gonna come out of, who's gonna pay for it, MIS. You know, it just seemed like anything little was
Big.
big.
Frustratingly big.
Right.
Okay.
I got just a question. In that, is she going to take her line item then for the computer, the software that she uses for legal research? Because I took that out of my budget, knowing that she was having a budget.
Yes, so
So you
then,
guys covered it though.
yep,
Okay.
but included in that would be her, we now call a legal search engine. So we always, in previous years, before all of the technology, we had to maintain a law library and different things. And so now everything with it being online, she has a subscription to a legal search engine. And we also have to make that available to the public. So that if someone does not have an attorney and they're pro se, that they have some access to some of that same legal information that they can pursue on their own. So she has that prescription, and that is previously come out of Stacy's budget. And so that would move to her budget if it's all approved.
So we've got it covered at least.
Any idea how much that is? Annuals?
I want to say it's less than 2,000, but I
Okay.
don't quote me on.
Right, estimate. All right,
Yeah,
all right. So that still leaves some money. If we put in 5, there's still some money for other
yeah.
incidentals to figure out
Yeah.
what the needs are.
Like, I don't think it's $200 a month. I want to say it's like 180 or 130 or something.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, anything else? That's good. All right. Progress being made there. Good, looking forward to that security report and move on with that. Register and probate while we're here, anything you want to touch on that, on item number E?
Not really, I mean, it's just we've had some probate cases that have taken on a little bit of a life on their own due to some dynamics in families and things, and so that kind of comes and goes. Right now, there seems to be plenty of those, but other than that, our budget's in line and everything's pretty normal.
Very good. From the committee, anything else on the circuit court judge or register and probate? Any questions from the committee? All right, hearing none, we're going to go then to item D, clerk of courts, and thank you, Stacy, for your email yesterday, and your revenues are looking really good,
Really good.
really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
They just, a note on that, they will, I mean, there's no way that they wouldn't exceed projections with this money, months left, and amount of money that comes in, just how much we don't know. But they wouldn't, like this last month, a lot came in. Well, the monies that we deposit every day, that we take in, all the transactions, and then we do our own deposits for us and for Jen's office and everything. And then at the end of the month, once I get the month closed out and the bank closes out the month, then I can reconcile and take that money that we've deposited in there and pay out to the county and the state, the city of Richland Center, and the various entities that we disperse from. So because that process is the month has to have closed out. So I can't begin it until into the new month. That money was given to the county treasurer's office on August 1st. So the July customer transactions are not reflected in these reports. So it's even better than what is included in when Tammy Wheelock ran these for me. I asked her to run them up to date because we just got our state aid check, which is, apportioned in 3 different accounts in the budget. And so that only happens a couple of times a year. So it's not like you will see if you took the amount of money that changed from like June to July and was like, ooh, we're gonna now, if we go 5 more months and it's not like that. Now it'll be, the amounts will be what the customer transactions, the normal stuff. But those from this past month will show then on the next report, but we're still I have not seen a year that we're on pace like this.
So, and just so the committee knows, what are some of the things that you are collecting for, that you're gathering those funds from?
Oh, goodness sakes.
The top few, I know there's a whole
The top few, so reimbursement, I always like to think in terms of what goes 100% to the county, that's what I think of first.
Okay.
That's attorney fee reimbursement for any types of adversarial counsel, people that didn't qualify for state public defender, and but they are indigent, which we have a lot of folks in Richland County that would fall into what you would call working poor. They have jobs, they're not gonna qualify for public defender, but they don't make enough to be able to retain an attorney. And so the county pays for the expense under what's called court appointment, or in criminal cases, we call that dean. It's like State versus Dean was the case. And it's at a Supreme Court rate. So all 72 counties in the state have to pay $100 an hour for those attorneys. So when I recover money on those, that's 100% reimbursement to the county. So that's one of the big ones. And anybody who has court appointed counsel, I set them up on a wage assignment. So we find out who their employer is and we work with the employer to garnish so much per month while the case is pending and beyond. And get our money back, similar to that, but in family cases where there's not defendants, but minor parties, children who otherwise aren't represented without a guardian ad litem. And so the guardian ad litem, or for anybody in Jen's cases, folks who can't represent their own interest, for a variety of reasons, but those, the county has to pay $100 an hour again, and then we seek reimbursement from the parties. So that's, the money goes out much faster than it comes back. And as you can imagine, because, for example, in criminal cases, the judge will order people to pay $50 per month while their case is pending. But as I told you, it's $100 per hour that the attorneys get paid. So, so it's that we're constantly trying to get that money back and keeping up on with people. Now, where are you working? They're supposed to let us know, but they often don't. And then I use various ways to get the money when they don't willingly pay it, all lawful, all according to statute. But I use every single one of them that I can.
Okay.
With the exception of arrest warrants. We don't do those anymore for failed to pay. That just causes issues for law enforcement in the jail and costs the county money. I have many other tools at my disposal now. Mediation fees, when folks mediate in family cases and try to reach some sort of resolution so they don't have to have a guardian ad litem involved. That costs the county money, the county pays a mediator. I charge the parties for that mediation according to statute, get that reimbursement. The rest of the stuff that we collect is every traffic case that goes to Richland County. So I think so far this year, it's like 1,200 or something of those that have been filed. So every one that the judge orders guilty, whether it's a city one, a state one, a county issued, a DNR forfeiture, whatever it is, our office is the clearinghouse for all the financials. And that's, in summary, that's what we are, is the clearinghouse for court-ordered fines, forfeitures, and reimbursements. So, and then small things, copy fees, stuff like that.
Sure.
Filing fees on cases, that makes up a share of what we collect. But the big ones are the reimbursements that we're trying to get back for the money that we spent out. And because we keep a portion on those traffic cases and stuff, but we don't keep as much as what you would think, as much as what we would like. Right now, this year, at the end of this year, I'll end my term as the president of the Clerk of Courts Association. And so for the last, I've held the position for a little over 2 years now. And we are working very closely with the Wisconsin Counties Association and with lawmakers. And Counties Association is promoting a major funding package that they're going to put forth to the governor's office, whether the state director of courts office joins us in it or not. They have their own interest at the state level. And unfortunately, this partnership, that's the circuit court partnership of state and county, has become very lopsided state. And counties are struggling, and it's one of the reasons we struggle in Richland County, and the sheriff's department has a hard time with providing security for court. That's a necessary expense. It's not within the court's budget, but it's still a court-related expense that's reported to the state every year. The state mandates all this like really detailed reporting, and we give it to them. And we give to them the figures that law enforcement spends. Every county does this, but yet it's not figured into the equation for when they give us court support. And so what we're focusing on in this big ask, where the counties association is saying, this is what we want, and the state director of courts office says, well, we just want a modest increase. We don't know what's with their big ask. And so our focus is on security statewide. And so all of the counties are getting together what they would do if they get a bump in their court support with the focus on security. And so I had asked Clay to run me some numbers on what would it be like, what would a deputy's position be, pay and benefits and everything. This is what we would do if we had the money. And so in this fall, the county board is probably going to hear more about this as we get close to the pressure point on these things on a state level. I expect there's going to be resolutions to support it and that sort of thing. But just a little background on that. We partnered with the Wisconsin Counties Association because it's a fight for the counties. We're not trying to take away from the state. We are trying to make the counties whole. So that's our big focus, and that's where my passion has been during my presidency. And the association is the Clerk of Courts Association is the one that funded my attendance at the National Court Managers Conference these last 2 years. So last week it was New Orleans, and last year it was in Tampa. And all expenses, flight, hotel, conference fee, food, everything paid for, the association sends the president. So Me and 2 district court administrators from Wisconsin was our
Nice.
nice. Most states have many. Wisconsin was hardly represented there, but had a lot of good discussions and made some really good connections. And some of the things that we're working on the state level that will affect the county, because there'll be efficiency for our courts, like how we're gonna use artificial intelligence and in what ways. And dovetail that into our software programs for the state, and maybe address some things like digital court reporter shortages, or I would like to see it help with interpreter stuff. So I'm pushing to get onto a state committee right now, CCAP Steering's Committee on Artificial Intelligence. So hopefully that everything that I do and that the clerks that are involved in this kind of stuff, we do it kind of selfishly for our counties. So
No,
That's
the
that.
counties helps the state, so that's why Wisconsin counties is such a.
yeah, Wisconsin counties is a very, very powerful lobby, and our lawmakers urged, when I've talked to them, they said partner with them, make them your friend, and that's what we've done. So a shout out though, big time in my office, I couldn't do this kind of stuff and be involved on the state level like that if it wasn't for my staff. And last week, I was at national conference and DJ was on vacation. And Sarah was a one-woman powerhouse. And Jen Markeen assisted our office. Obviously, Sarah had to close the door when she went to court. And so Jenny Markeen helped where she could with customers, but a lot of it was Sarah returning calls after hours or when she came down, and, closing the door when she needed to be able to pull messages off and all that stuff. We push people towards electronic payment in our office, and we have the QR code for that on our door. So if somebody comes to the office to pay, we feel we're not turning so many people away when we're not there, because they can just QR and go right to the state site. So that things like that help us, but still, that was a hell of a week for Sarah, and she handled it capably. She is the real deal. So very, very thankful for her, and the county should be thankful as well.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you. Anything else for the clerk of courts? Questions? Any questions? Anything else, then, Stacy? That's great. Good
Thank you.
information, all good
Thank you.
information. And thank you for going to those conferences and identifying Southwest Wisconsin,
Yeah. That's
those
my name tag
conferences-
said Richland County Circuit Court. It didn't say state of Wisconsin, but that's,
Right.
I got adopted by the Florida group. They like my accent. That's so funny.
All right. All right, then moving on, we've already covered item E, register probate. Item F, or yes, district attorney. Not here right now, I'm guessing in court with everything going on, okay? Moving on, item G, emergency management. Activities.
Yes. So for emergency management, we have been trying to work a little bit more on our public outreach, about 8 more posts on our Facebook page. The goal is to try and have the Facebook page updated about 4 to 5 times a week and kind of recruit some of that community engagement. And just in the last week trialing that, we have seen an increase in engagement as well. We have been working with Willow Township in regards to some washout concerns, some levy concerns, and a few other things. I have a great working relationship with Chairman Willow Township there, Tim Willis, and trying to knock down some of those barriers. As it pertains to Wisconsin Emergency Management Grants, so that's the EMPG and HEPA grants. We are still information gathering on that, but what we do know now, we'll address this a little bit later in the agenda, is that the notice of funding opportunity for that has changed and looks a little bit different. So we're going to be working through in our office of what does that grant mean to us? What is it able to accomplish for the county? And how does it incorporate to actual community emergency management as to where we are able to be out in the community and actually doing emergency management versus checking certain boxes on a computer and how much of that needs to be done versus being out and about. So we will table the rest of kind of item G for the EMPG and upgrade grant to our next public safety committee meeting. We'll have more information at that point. One of the big takeaways that we have noticed in the notice of funding opportunity for those grants is that contract services are no longer fundable via the grant. These are my contract services right here. So we will discuss that further later in the agenda, but otherwise, no major disasters over the last month. Thankfully, all good news there. We move forward.
All right, all right. Anything else? Any comments, any questions? For emergency management? Michael, anything else? All right, there's some more stuff coming up, so we will move on. Item H, PSAP and GIS grants. Are they submitted?
They are submitted, as you know, Barbara, anybody is on. Yes, they are submitted. I can't really speak to the GIS side of things very well, but we are looking at making some changes to how we do medical dispatching in the jail, and that was part of the grant application. In addition to medical dispatching, so we're looking at migrating from APCO to PowerPhone for medical dispatching. That also affords us additional service in that not only will they have medical dispatching protocols that they can go through, it also has fire protocols and law enforcement protocols to aid the dispatchers in their call taking. So that's a change we're hoping to make through the grant. I know that, as far as the mapping stuff, I'm not the most familiar on what they're funding with that, but I know that both grants have been submitted.
Okay, I understand there was a orthophotography request.
Yes,
That was
I think
gonna go
more
in,
detailed, higher
yes,
detailed ortho.
higher resolution
Yeah.
ortho is what I thought I heard was gonna be processed through that too. All right, any questions, comments on the PSAP grant? Again, that's funding that comes out every 18 months and is paid for by your cell phones, your 75 cents on your cell phones that we are now tapping into for the 911 centers. Hearing nothing, moving on, radio tower project.
Josh just called, that's why I ran out, because I
Right.
thought he might have. So the Keysville site, we were having an issue with the fact that Ithaca came back, we were told that it had to be rezoned to build the site. And so Ithaca said that it would be at a minimum 3 months. And so we're working towards trying to expedite that, but we needed a CSM. Josh did get a hold of Todd Rumler, and he is trying to see if he can expedite it. If he can't, he has also been in touch with Fred Gruber. So one way or another, we're gonna get that CSM as fast as we can, and then work on trying to see if we can expedite that, because they were saying, it's because of the public meeting notices and the, what we have to go through, but, yeah. We didn't, apparently no one knew that had to be rezoned prior to building the tower, which is a significant delay. Obviously, 3 months is a long time. So we have that little bit of information, but we're on it and hopefully finding some solution.
So I guess under the radio tower project also, we have a deadline. We have a financial deadline of December, end of December.
Well, more than one.
You're correct,
We
right.
won't-
Our deadline, put it that way, is the end of December. Prior to that, there are step deadlines, and those step deadlines, payments need to be made to the companies. Just for the record, we have missed one of those deadlines, and which means that the interest that we earned, we can't use in the project. So we have lost some money on that because we missed that deadline. One of the other concerns is the deadline of December. It's part of the grant, it's part of the funding of the project that we did when the county board passed the funding. And as that comes up, we have to have the money spent by that deadline. And if this tower project is 3 months out, this is August, September, October, November, coming. Yeah, well, we're coming to the wire. And to do a full test on the system, you need to have leaves on the trees, corn in the fields, the worst scenario possible, and that's obviously not gonna happen this year.
No, well, and that's a discussion I've had with Gen Com as well, as, you know, turnkey hand over the system to us won't probably happen. You know, we can have the money spent, the tower's built this year, but that final sign off saying, hey, it's what we told you we'd give you, won't be able to happen until spring, summer
Of next year.
of 25.
Right.
Yeah.
So, have some concerns about that. At the last meeting, we did see the information from Edge and the cost differences or some cost changes. In reviewing that document, there are a number of things that they are taking off because they don't need to be done. So there's some savings there, but there's a number of things that they needed to add. I just want to highlight one of those items. One of those items is called a power walk. Those were additional costs, probably one of the larger costs on some of that. The power walk was part of our contract. It was not billed. It was not calculated into the estimate because we did not know if the power companies were going to require that or not. And what the power walk is the power companies say, hey, this is what we think it is, but we want to walk with the engineers to the site, walk through everything, make sure we completely understand. So that was in there as an option, as something that might happen. It was not calculated into the budget. It was figured in that it might come up later. And there were, I think, 3 of those that the power companies requested. So a question had come up about that, and yes, that was in the contract. We didn't specify a dollar amount because we didn't know how many there were going to be. 3 of the 7 sites that they requested that for. So some of those expenses are in there. I think yes, at the next meeting, we're going to have a little more detail as to what our timetable is going to be, what our expense timetable is going to be, because we're going to be right to the wire. And if we don't do it, there's penalties from the financial organization that's funding this. So to get that disclosure out there. Any questions on that at this point? We're struggling through that. Is that a good way to put it?
Do they take in no count generator backup on the power walk? Is that what that's for? Or is it?
It was just to produce power, to get the power, whether it's the power lines, the cables, the poles,
Service the building
to service the site. Yes,
on the other side.
right,
So they, okay.
right.
Yeah.
On the power company side
Generator, all that stuff.
On our side.
and our side.
That, we're gonna be sure that that's covered.
Yes,
Just as a matter of closing out the contract.
right.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
got it.
Okay, so anything else on the radio tower project at this moment? Deep breath on that. Item J, mapping radio systems and squad updates. We've already talked about the mapping and radio systems. Is there something with the squad updates I saw on the packet?
We get the squad miles are in there. The lieutenant squad that was waiting to be built was finally built by Gen Com, and we got that back last
Tuesday.
It was this Tuesday.
This
Tuesday, we got that car back. So we have that lieutenant squad back. Gen Com's projecting September, we'd be able to get our other squad in to be built. That's where we're at.
Caught up in squad. Okay, well, nothing critical, no more deer.
We did have a pretty pricey fix, bro. Maybe we talked about that last, the Durango with the oil and the coolant. And we got that bill back and it was pretty pricey. What was it, $4,000 or something like that? Apparently to fix that problem, they had to flush it multiple times to get all the oil out of the coolant area. I think they flushed it 5 or 6 times and it's like $4,000 for that.
This is not a warranty item.
No. But besides that, I think all of our damages have been fixed by Wagner's for the deer crashes, so hopefully not gonna look be the deer.
Season. which people don't realize is usually June, July, and in July, more so than the fall. Weird. All right, if you want to look that up, Sheriff, we'll get that back to Bill's.
Yeah.
Anything else for the mapping system squad updates from the committee? Hearing none, moving on to item K, we're going to table, which is the courthouse security report. We discussed that they're going to be, courthouse security committee is going to be meeting, and then they will get back to us in October. So if we can get that on the October agenda. All right, moving on to item number 8, approval of monthly invoices. That would be the sheriff.
There it is. Missed it. Yeah, any questions about the bills? I do have the bill for Cornerstone that Aaron was referencing. So that was $2,000.
Okay.
$2,067.71.
The Civic Media WRCO Tower, is that annual?
Yep, that's
1,000?
the tower lease. And then there's a US Cellular one in there that is also a tower lease.
And that's the annual one again.
Yeah.
Muscatine site. Okay. Looking over the bills, any questions? Yes.
Down below in the summary, it's got dog contract 1,500, but I don't see a payment for that. Is that paid other than monthly?
It's monthly.
That's monthly, yeah.
Is there, it's just not listed up above as one of the payments? Or
No,
It's
it's
not
not.
really a bill, it's just a monthly contract fee, so
Okay.
these are just more the
They're more
bills
like-
that we get, that we pay.
okay.
And you had asked a question about the dog contract. I think we have 2 years. That,
Or, I think you guys both got that, right? So I think
Yeah,
it is
okay.
through 2026.
something like that, yeah. So that's something we have to, we have to look at the next round. Any other questions on the monthly invoices? Hearing none, looking for a motion to approve the monthly invoices.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Looking for a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9, discussion and possible action, sale of Sheriff's Office surplus firearms. This was on the last agenda, and we're bringing it up because the sheriff was going to get some more detail. Sheriff?
Yeah, so I reached out to the Badger Sheriff's Association. So but fairly common practice, and I believed it to be a fairly common practice in law enforcement. Of the responses I got, everybody does it. Everybody does it a little bit differently though. So I got, like I say, I got varied responses to even where like at retirement, some departments give them their duty weapon at retirement. Some departments charge them $1 for their duty weapon at retirement. Some departments charge the replacement value. So as far as sale of surplus or weapons that are being cycled out, what seemed to be the more common practice is that they get a quote from whoever the vendor they're purchasing the new weapons from for a trade-in value. And then they charge the deputies the trade-in value. How that transaction takes place varies. A lot of departments use a licensed gun dealer to make the transaction. Either they take it to the vendor they're buying new from, they give them the guns as trade-in value, and then they charge them like an additional $20 for the transfer. So they pay, the deputy pays the vendor then the price plus $20, and then it comes back to them. Some departments, and I'm still waiting for a form back from one of them, they just use a form the ATF provides, and then they sell directly to the deputy. The agency itself sells directly to the deputy. That was probably one of the less common ones, but it was one that came up a few times where they just sell directly to the deputy, money goes back into the equipment line, and And that's kind of what I had envisioned myself, is that we would sell direct to the deputy, put the money into the equipment line, buy what we need for the remaining rifles to get all new rifles, and then be done with it. But I am open to, I have spoken to a dealer. I actually got a quote, trade-in quote from one, and then I spoke to actual local one, who said he'd be willing to help with the transfers, so.
Okay, so,
Yeah, the vendor I spoke to, was Top Pack, which is one of our more common vendors out of Sun Prairie, valued them at about $250 each.
Okay.
So, he has recently done a similar trade for another county that, they went back with a bunch more equipment on them. Mine are gonna be pretty well stripped of any extra equipment, and, so that's what he valued them at.
so, I guess let's start out with, this is county property. And we have a county policy on county property that other agencies have access to that. I think this is probably not one of those items that we want to just be able to trade out with the other county, with the other departments. But I certainly don't want to step outside of our county policy either. Opinion? You're,
No, I don't think we offer this up to other departments like we do cars.
or other items, right?
But we do have a policy though that things are to be auctioned.
Oh.
Any surplus property has to go on like WISBID. And that's pretty common practice for everything else. Now, these are firearms, so that is a little bit different.
They do firearms?
So Wisconsin surplus does do firearms. I thought, now I'm going back to, we're going back to the old board rules, but I thought that the committee could decide how they were disposed of or liquidated. I thought.
Firearms or all?
It never specified.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you've been pretty much across the board,
Yeah.
everything goes to auction. Just because of the fact that if you're deciding at a committee level, then you open yourself up to, well, so-and-so got this deal, so-and-so got that deal. So it's pretty much been, at least since I've come on board, everything has gone to auction.
Yeah.
Everything's been posted, everything's gone that way. That way you have a middleman, you know it's been fair, and nobody has been given a leg up over anyone else. And because typically when you have surplus property, county employees cannot bid on surplus property. In this case though, when it's been a service weapon, I do know that it is commonplace that the employee is typically allowed to, like a vest or that is a different scenario. So I don't think we treat this the same as those things. So I mean, I think what my recommendation would be is to go through a dealer just to have that buffer of, we didn't do any insider trading, nobody got a special deal, nobody got $50 knocked off, so you have that buffer of, okay, we took the weapons here, there was a quote given, there was a trade done, the exchange happened there, the money was returned to the sheriff's office, done. That way there's an outside third party involved, so nobody can posit that there was any sort of backdoor wrongdoing type stuff that went on. And that's just for liability's sake to protect you all and the county, would be my suggestion. Just because if it's all done in-house, where's the watchdog, right? If anybody were to come in and throw an accusation around, but that's just my 2 cents.
So are you saying that the surplus firearms then would be sold to a dealer and then the dealer could sell them to the
No, I
officers?
just, what Clay, his idea earlier, that
Okay.
you just involve the third party. I like that idea better than just.
Okay.
And
Well, make sure.
in complete transparency, the third party that I was planning on using is a county employee.
Because he's a firearms dealer.
Because he's a firearms dealer. Yeah.
And you purchase firearms, officers purchase
He
firearms.
actually is I guess, approved vendor we've used in the past to purchase firearms.
I don't like
So
that.
he's a direct financial interest in this transaction, or she?
I don't know that he's planning on getting any financial gain from this transaction.
Okay.
He usually does a transfer.
He usually does it for free for us.
So he is utilizing skills he happens to have to the benefit of the county. He is not engaging with the county in his services as a vendor. Okay,
Yeah,
that's different.
he's never, to my knowledge, charged above the cost of the item to a sheriff's office staff member.
Yeah, we better have an offline conversation about that, because we have a conflict of interest policy and that.
It's not a good.
The appearance.
Yeah, okay. So I would recommend at this point, now that you've got your information, which we asked you for, that we table this to the next meeting so we can look at, one, the conflict of interest question. And two, the auction, if there's something in our rules that allows that auction item to be, instead of going to auction, they do something else with it. So I think we need to look at those. And we're not in a crunch for this. Okay.
No rush.
So,
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
Since we established that this is a special case, this isn't surplus property, just put out there for everybody, let's look at creating surplus weapons policy specifically, so we can incorporate whatever solution we come up with and get
Add it to the list.
We will add it to the list. I think it's an excellent idea. And I'm going to ask the sheriff to see if other agencies have such said policy.
What he said.
So that was Dave, and he said that we should look at a surplus weapons policy. We have a policy for auctions for other items. This may be unique enough that it could require its own policy, and I think we should look at that.
I want to say, now that I'm thinking, that was addressed, we had that in our union contract.
Did you?
That our deputies were allowed, like their vests went with them, or they were able to buy their vest for $1, and then their weapon, if they wanted to, if they were retiring from service. I don't think it was just if they were leaving service, but if they were retiring from service, they could purchase their weapon, or, it's just a thought, but, when you're fishing around.
Yeah.
Maybe see if it's in their union contracts or if they have a policy. Sometimes it could be addressed there.
Except we have some non-union members that would also be in that category too, so.
Yeah, it's true. Well, yeah, before everybody was union, where you guys aren't everybody, so.
Yeah.
But they may have language in there though that we just wouldn't want to see.
No, yeah.
As we're formulating, maybe not, but it's worth the ask.
Okay, so I think we have some direction on that for the next meeting. We'll get some more questions answered. And maybe start a new policy that.
Let's see if I can put some drafts.
We'll have that discussion. All right. Anything else? Any other questions on item number 9, surplus firearms? Hearing nothing from the committee, moving on to number 10, discussion and possible action, approval of amendments to the Richland County Sheriff's Department Ordinance 89-7 relating to department staffing and hiring processes. So just as a quick recap, this is something this committee has gone over, reviewed. We actually had a document we thought was ready. It was reviewed by the attorney and deemed probably not. And then we also have a Unicode. What's the Unicode is a company that helps build policies for counties and agencies.
More revises existing policies. What they've been retained to do in this case is convert to electronic format our code of ordinances. I've looked at several since, but when I first started, I always joked that I had a client who was charged with disorderly conduct, I think, and I negotiated with the DA, settled, got the case in front of the judge, all without ever reading the ordinance he was actually pleading to. I've since streamlined that process, but suffice to say, it's not ideal not to have all this online. we are now anticipating the document that will eventually be adopted by the county board as the omnibus code of ordinances. And that is what I had included in your packets for discussion today. So after the last committee meeting, the sheriff and I had a brief discussion regarding the updates to it, this ordinance. And ultimately, we decided it was worth consideration that we take a look at not only the ordinance as it exists currently, but what we anticipate adopting as part of this conversion. And so this is the draft with the revisions highlighted. The major change, I would say, from the ordinance as it exists currently is that the hiring process is removed entirely. Now, recognizing that there are specific qualifications for law enforcement officers that may be different from other county employees, it still makes more sense that the hiring policy not be in an ordinance. That way it can be more flexible as the practice of law enforcement changes, if there are things that need to happen, which then brings me to the other change that was made in this proof that the sheriff raised as a concern that I need to see addressed, but I believe there's an implicity to it, which is that okay, if you look starting on page 9, and again, this is all crossed out, so it's maybe a little bit difficult to read, but the subsection is titled Powers of the Sheriff to Make Work Rules. It is my belief that there is an implicit authority to any department head, be it an appointed department head or an elected official, that they have the authority to make work rules that govern their department to the extent that they're not restricted from doing so by board action, state statute, other law.
I'm not seeing what you're looking at.
Yeah, this. Okay. It's not crossed out on this guy.
Right, okay, so what page is that on?
59 of the packet.
9 of them.
Setting number 7, powers of the sheriff to make work rules.
6.
Oh, it is struck on mine.
Are you looking at the?
No, you're not in the packet.
Oh, okay.
You're in the packet, so that's gotta go.
No, this is Commissioner Standards. I would have put that here.
The packet also should have the draft section in it later on. Sorry, at page 59 on the packet.
So if you're on the packet that's in our group, it's on page here. Page 11.
Page 9, if you're looking at, you're in the folder you're talking about, huh?
Yeah, it's physical page 9. Yeah, item 7, powers showing up as 13 at line 11. All right, so powers of the sheriff to make work rules.
And so this is basically what that says is subject to the approval of the Public Safety Committee, the sheriff has the right to make work rules. Again, I don't think the sheriff needs committee approval to adopt a work rule. I think if the committee has an issue with it, they can override a work rule passed by, and this goes for any department head, because ultimately the county board has the authority to dictate how county agencies are run to a certain extent, as long as it doesn't interfere with statutory duties. But the point of this is that I don't know that this needs to be in there, but I could certainly understand the argument having it clarified and spelled out for those who may come after us, that this does exist. In other words, this needs to exist somewhere. It's just a matter of, does it have to be in this ordinance? Can it be something that we adopt as a county policy, which is my recommendation, just put it in the county handbook or whatever we want to do. If we have a department head handbook, just make it clear that, you know, you have the authority to make work rules. But ultimately, the decision lies with the board.
So I guess on this part then, if the sheriff changes a work rule, if the committee doesn't have any knowledge that the work rule is being changed, if for some reason this is gone, how would we know if the work rule is been changed unless the sheriff comes and says, hey, this is the work rule we want to change?
And I guess I would say that we haven't changed our work rules in a long time. Policy is constantly.
Ebbs and flows.
Yeah. So we have two separate documents. We have a work rules document, and then we have our policy and procedure manual. So, and I know I can't think of, we haven't changed work rules in probably since Tom was here.
Probably.
So,
Janice had a thought, I think.
Well, so I guess this is where I'm work rules are, to me, are day-to-day things. I mean, you may have to change a rule based on, you know, you've got someone who's maybe dressing inappropriately, so you have to implement a policy, you know, that you can't wear tank tops and nothing can be low cut and whatever. I mean, do we really have to bring that to the board and go through a whole approval process? I mean, that's why we have managers, that's why we have supervisors. So I guess I'm looking for clarity as to what is a work rule that really needs to come in front of the board, because then we're gonna go back to, is the board managing our departments or our department heads managing our departments? So, you know, policy, I believe, is where that needs to come in front of each committee, because that is policy making, but day-to-day work rule type decision making, isn't that what our managers are hired to do? You know, that's where I guess I want clarity on what is this work rule, and isn't that what we want our managers to be doing on a day-to-day basis, is setting those work rules and, you know, kind of going with what the needs are at the time, given what the staff is. I mean, if you're talking about changing work hours, okay, yeah, that's a significant thing that should come before a committee. But if it's minor things, minor operational things that are needs, does that really need to come before? So I guess, Bob, that's what I'm asking is, what are we looking at here?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the way I read it in here is that you would be notified as the chair of any changes, and then the board at that point would have 45 days to disapprove it. Meaning, if it's what you're describing, you wouldn't even bring it to the board or this committee, because that's something they should determine. If it's work hours, then potentially this would be brought to this committee then. So it would kind of be the discretion of the chair. That's how I read it. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Right, but so then my question is, so what rises to the level of we have to tell the chair of every committee when we make a change? You know what I'm saying? Because I guess to me, that's why you have an administrator, so that the board, you know, the department head can come and say, hey, I'm having an issue with this. And we can talk through it and say, okay, I would recommend this is what you do, and, you know, see how it works, right? So it's a small change. It's not a significant change. It's not a policy change. It's not, you know, significantly changing operations, right? So, you know, is that what we want to do? Or is it then, if you want to make that small change and say, you know, we want everyone to wear, you know, shirts that have a inch wide strap, now we have to call up the chair of the committee and say, okay, we'd like to implement this. Do we have your permission? So I just want to make sure that we're clear on, if we're going to implement a rule like that, then how involved and what type of changes are we going to have to then have, you know, information on before we can implement them?
Well, I don't think the way that I'm reading this, it doesn't look like that it has to be approved by the chair. It's just
Okay.
only would be brought here if we disapprove.
Okay.
So that's what I read. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
But I guess then it would be money for me because I would feel like I would have to then bring everything. Because how am I gonna know if you don't approve if I don't bring everything?
Right, and it just sounds like it's a notification to the chair, and then that would be the chair's decision whether
Right.
it should be brought to the committee.
What's-
That's what I'm reading, or am I reading it wrong?
That's what I mean. I'm just confused. I think at this point, that seems like a lot.
Stacy? go.
I have a question. Clay, as a constitutional elected official in Wisconsin, how do other sheriffs have this procedure where like work rules would have to go, it
I
seems
think
like,
it varies, because a lot of things, like some of the things we've discussed, like changing the schedule and making adjustments to the schedule fall under management rights anyway.
yeah,
So, the other side of it too is being a constitutional elected position. There's things I can do in case law to support that, that say, like, I have the authority to make decisions that are common, mundane, commonplace, in the management of my office. So, yeah.
it's a little different than us, constitutional elected officials. We are department heads, but we're elected department heads. We're a little different than some of the other departments, but not saying that we can't just say, well, we want a 30-hour work week for our employees, but they're paid 40. Obviously, things like that, no, but it is a little different.
Yes.
So as a non-elected department head, this seems to me as a policy you would want in place if you had department heads that were constantly going rogue and trying to go against the system and make things difficult for their people. I think this is assuming a lack of transparency on your department heads, assuming a lack of management and desire to share information and updates and to, add in if you're globally changing a work rule, add that into your monthly department update. All right, cool, but to have to pick up the phone like, hey, well, really thinking that this, how we're backing up ambulances and working, you don't want that phone call. You don't want to hear that from me every time we have to fix that issue. I think if department heads are in place that are doing their job, this suddenly becomes a non-issue.
It's micromanagement if it's too involved, but for, again, hammering on the elected constitutional position, if Clay does something that's not appropriate per statute, there's a removal process, just like there is for every elected official. If I do something that's improper, there is a removal statute that the judge can use to remove me. And same thing the governor would use to remove the sheriff. I mean, these are spelled out in Wisconsin statute, these elected positions, and that's, we need to always look at that.
I don't think that's the issue here. That's not even the issue here. The issue here is how we're managing our non-elected staff and how involved or not involved or whatever might.
First, our work rules for the sheriff's department were reaffirmed in February 2nd of 1996. And so this is not necessarily something that is urgent. There's a time-honored tradition in law to make up examples for situations which are absurd but possible. So I am thinking an example of what we would envision as a work rule. All of a sudden, all of our deputies decide their gun belts are too heavy and they don't want to carry their gun belts while on duty. So they leave their gun belts in their lockers and drive off and go on patrol and do everything. Or equipment belts or whatever. There's a gun on it, so it's a gun belt to me. And so the sheriff implements a work rule that says any deputy on patrol shall carry all equipment, including their gun belts. Then does that have to be reported to the committee? And then what happens if the committee disapproves that work rule? I think it would be it is far more difficult for the county board to come and bring a resolution or ordinance saying that no, deputies should be allowed to go on patrol without their gun belts than it would be for a committee to simply say, no, we don't believe this. you know, I agree with Mike's point. I think that it is incumbent on the relevant committees to make clear their expectations of the officials and department heads that report to them. And it should be then incumbent on them and the board to act if they feel a work rule is contrary to the best interests of the county. But otherwise, if they have an issue with the way that a department head is running their department, their remedy is to direct Candace to remove that person or to pursue the statutory removal process as appropriate.
What's the difference between a work rule and a policy?
It's the obscenity quote.
You should.
I can't define it, but I know when I see it. So like wearing a gun belt, that would be a work rule.
Is it? We have a policy that tells us
Yeah.
what our deputies have to wear on duty.
And they have to be 9mm
Yep.
firearms, and they have to be this, and they have to have this on their belts, and
Where
isn't that a
where's
policy?
written?
We have our policies that say exactly what we need to write. Our
So
policies.
that would fall under,
Is that in this thing?
No.
No.
But who implemented that policy?
Well, it's for the sheriff, I mean,
So that's
Chief
work-
Deputy normally writes it, well, it's our department policies.
Yeah, at a certain point, we're just getting into semantics. So just for simplicity, if Clay implements it, it's a work rule. Whatever we end up calling it when we write it down. If the board or committee implements it, it is a policy. So all of our officers shall be equipped as necessary to provide safety to themselves and the community that they protect. That is a policy. That is, the county board is going to commit to appropriating the budget necessary to provide that equipment, provide enough staff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Deputies shall wear their gun belts when they're on patrol. That is a work rule.
Chairman Frank, so.
Yes.
Oh, best way I think I put it, Steve, SOP is standard operating procedure. You shall follow every letter of the law as it reads here. Standard operating guidelines says this is overall how we want things to go. We can't put everything into a box. There could be some deviation on this, but here's a guide how to move forward. So rules versus policies.
Right, I agree. I guess I just had from the legal aspect, I just had my head flipped around because the sheriff's department has had policy. We built policy for, right?
yeah, everything.
That policy, we called that policy. Now we're calling that, now from a legal phrase, that's a work rule?
I don't even know that it's legal. It's just,
Or, okay, all right.
but just break
That's
it.
the terminology.
The point of origin is what determines the difference between a work rule and a policy.
Okay.
If it is a department head that's implementing it, it is a work rule. If the board and committee, and that difference only matters when we're talking about the interaction of those two entities. So if all we're talking about is this sheriff's employee handbook, I don't care what he calls it, policy,
Right.
procedure, Susian step-by-step, whatever he wants to call it is fine. But when we're comparing whatever he writes down to what you as a board and as a committee pass, then it's a work rule for the purposes of this ordinance or whatever policy we end up adopting.
Right. Sounds like they're pretty interchangeable.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why we make the big bucks.
Okay.
So after all the discussion, where do we end up at?
Yeah, exactly.
So the question remains, is this something that we want in in this ordinance? In which case, I would have to recommend that this language or something similar be included in every department-specific ordinance to make it, fair and balanced. Every department head should be clear that they're authorized to make these work rule changes. Again, we could do that, or we take it out of here and we just put it in the county handbook, and then we don't have to go through the entire code. Just if you are the head of a department, you can make work rules.
Chair.
Yes.
As much as I think that the board wants to, I mean, we want to fully support operations at that department head level.
Yes.
Absolutely, 100%. We don't, I just feel that the board does not need to be, or we do not have the desire, I do not have the desire to hash over all of these work rules, procedures, day-to-day things that you need to change in your office to be effective. However, the public and members of boards, in light of recent events, might have been helpful had we been aware of procedures, policies, practices, and rules that had been taking place and implemented or attempted to be implemented by department heads, which probably caused things to elevate without the knowledge of said boards or committees. That said, is there a way to put this, is there a way to notify the chair without it being cumbersome of things that may be sensitive or changing things in such a way that, may not be fully understood or controversial to the workforce of these departments?
I would go back to what Mike said though too. I mean, last time our sheriff's department stuff was changed in 1998. That would have to go in front of the board. Like, whatever it was, it's back in the 90s. So at this point, I think we're kind of beating a dead horse here. It hasn't been changed since 96. That wouldn't need to go in front of your committee in the first place. So I don't think it really.
It wouldn't have been changed if we were calling them something else, if it had slid to the policy side of things. So it's a matter of how we define it again, back to this, if we haven't changed any rules since 1996, I find it hard to believe that procedures, day-to-day and operations haven't.
Policy
Procedure
changes.
changes.
Those are
daily.
changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't think you put in a different policy as far as the uniform, as far as what the deputies are allowed to wear. Does Bob need to be notified that now we allow our deputies to wear a cowboy hat?
I don't think so. I think we're talking about trust here, and we're talking about trust between the department heads and those chairs, and just the mutual respect of, hey, we're making a change. Might be something that people might be, be questioning, whatever. I just want you to be aware.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So to address that, I think that does exist. I think that if there's something that's controversial or might raise a few red flags or might get a few people hot, I know department heads do notify me of that. And I can tell you, I reach out to either the chair of said committee or I reach out to the chair and the vice chair. They are always aware if there is something that I think could potentially be controversial, could make anybody angry, or it could be a positive thing.
Sure.
I try to do that, and I know the department heads do that with me. If they think there's something coming down the pike that is good, bad, or ugly, they are very good about reaching out to me. And then, we say, have you talked to, whoever? And usually they have already contacted their chair or whomever and said, yep, they're aware. So I do think that when there's something that could be hair raising or controversial or whatever, I think those things are already happening organically. So I don't think we have an issue when it comes to something like that. When it's something that's really impactful, I do believe that those conversations are happening.
I would expect that they do. I mean,
Yeah.
I would assume
Yeah.
they do. I would
I do think that they
totally assume that that's the way it rolls. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to move us through this and protect ourselves so we know what's going on when we need to.
And then another point.
Dave, one moment, Sheriff speaking, you'll be next, if that's okay.
The other thing too.
Okay, let me just take a look here, discussion. We're gonna lose quorum. So you've got to,
Besides that, I gotta do, so.
you gotta go right now?
Yes. I first never used to time here, so.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Well, we can't make any decisions, but we can have a discussion.
So my comment I was going to make was, there's also grievance procedures. So if I make something that's so off the wall, there are remedies for the employees to, to work around that. So, I'm gonna give Chad Cosgrove a call and see if maybe he's available.
Okay. So we can continue this. So I guess in looking at this, how many here have seen what the sheriff's department work rules are? Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen them since 1996. I think I've seen them. Maybe we need to see what those are so we have a knowledge what that is. You guys are fully staffed right now. So another month, I hate doing that. But can we look at those? And Stacy had a question. Do you have work rules?
Follow, the work rules are simply, what their hours are as the 40 hours, whatever, so there's nothing strange with that. Everything that we do, we follow model record keeping and statute.
What dress code, Becky?
Handbook.
We know it's addressed at the time that we hire people and we say, this is what we wear. I had one time, more than 10 years ago, it was an issue. And I had to kind of have a policy discussion with people and say, this is what we don't wear here, but current staff, it's not a problem. People want to look a certain way. So no, I don't have any particular, ours is more procedure of when things come in, this is what we do, but that's akin to what we do under statute for the way that we keep records. And so we are following procedures that are consistent in probably most Wisconsin counties.
And then the rest would be followed under the county handbook. Anything else would be addressed that way.
Yeah, as far as how all of their time and all of that stuff is managed, we don't deviate from, anything that way.
And I guess from that point, I'd like to see what the work rules say. Maybe they're already incorporated into the county handbook. Maybe we don't even need that document, or maybe there's certain things in there we do.
There are certain things in here that are specific to and I would share them, but there's actually per the work rules are not to be distributed. So I sent them to you all individually.
Okay.
By email just now, but I don't want to display it on the screen or anything.
Right, that's fine.
Is it possible also to have like an admin folder under public safety and then they could just put in there? And then there, you could always easily view them without having to go back to our email.
Well, that might be.
Something that, MIS probably to set up that admin folder,
Yeah.
so they're always available.
That's something you could do within your department, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our
So it's
G drive,
actually- It's on the G drive, and I believe it's actually on Lexipol as well, under work rules, just so that everybody can see it from their phone.
It kind of sounds to me like we have some combination melding of what a work rule is, what your policy is, and maybe just cleaning some of that up and knowing that would take care of, some of the confusion. We can then specify what has to be a work rule, because the sheriff's writing and changing policy all the time.
Mhm.
Which you call, which is called work rule in
Right.
your world, but is policy.
And a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but a fair amount of the changes we have to make are driven by changes in state law or federal code or.
Right.
So
being from 1996, I'm wondering how much of that continues to be relevant.
A lot of it, actually.
Okay.
It is
it's a good document.
well-written document. It holds our deputies to a high standard of behavior and, like I said, it does have something specific.
Code on here to.
But would those things be things that the sheriff would have in his policy anyway?
Yes.
In his book, he has a book of policies on firearms, on use of force, on.
Then yes, these would all be in that. And in my world, those are his work rules.
Or those aren't necessary at all as that document. Thoughts, Sheriff?
So you have general best practices and then discipline specific practices in the county?
So we,
Is that what I'm hearing?
we kind of have our own, kind of have to have our own discipline playbook.
For discipline, we follow the county's.
Sheriff's deputies have statutory protections regarding certain disciplinary
We
actions.
kind of have our own little
Yeah.
process.
But that's statutory.
And that's statutory, yes.
And if it had been in the work rules, we might have saved both of us a lot of headache, but live and learn, you learn. So one example from the work rules, and I don't think it's any harm to disclose this. If a deputy or other employee of the sheriff's office is arrested, they are to write a report to their lieutenant, the chief deputy, or the sheriff indicating that they've been arrested. General employment law is such that we cannot take adverse action against an employee for conviction or arrest. However, there are standards to being a certified licensed law enforcement official, wherein an arrest may impact their ability to continue to serve in their job. So that would be something that is very, I mean, it would be healthcare and law enforcement, I would think, are the specific ones, well, and the attorneys. But it's not necessarily applicable to every county employee.
All right, thanks. That's the right number for Gary.
Okay. So I guess at this point, can't make a decision, but the discussion is that we sent those.
We need to create definitions for policy versus work for sheriff's department. And just define.
And
We
What
need
is-
to create it for the county,
yes,
and then it would apply to the sheriff's department.
Yes. Okay.
yes, I think so. So we know what that means. I
So,
think,
yeah, so we can.
I think we're doing this.
Yeah, we'll keep doing that until we have the
Right.
definitions.
I agree. All right, so you sent out that work rule, so we can look at that. I see that this is going to continue to the next meeting or further discussion. And we'll get this done within 3 years. But, okay. Any other discussion, thoughts on this? I think we have those documents to read through. And I will have discussion this month with the attorney and the sheriff to come up with some more clarification that things share next month. That's workable. All right. We still don't have quorum, is that correct?
Try and chat again.
Okay. Well, item number 10 is, well, discussion of amendment, oops, I did that right. Discussion of applying for a bots equipment grant.
Yes. Do you have Steve Williamson's number?
Can he,
Because the chair is currently unavailable to fulfill the duties of the chair, the vice chair assumes his duties. The chair can fill in on a committee,
the committee chair?
but the board chair, sorry.
I
board.
do have Steve's number.
Since he's the vice chair of the board, he can sit in and constitute quorum when,
Oh, yes. Oh,
let me just make sure I'm right about that in the new rules. That would be.
Oh.
Hey, Steve, question, would you be available to jump into a public safety meeting and help us complete a quorum? Our understanding is you as vice chair can attend the meeting and
Just listen in.
yes, it is Zoom. We just lost the quorum a few minutes ago and we're hoping to get it back.
Yep.
And Mike is saying that this will work.
Yeah, 6 items to go.
All right, great, thank you. Bye. Yep, he's gonna find the Zoom link and jump on.
Okay. We want to discuss that? We can't do anything with them. You can have a nice chat about.
So this has kind of been a long-term, want, I guess I would say, of mine. So we had, I've had discussions in the past with, our BOTS representatives about trying to get the radar speed signs. And I've always been told, no, we don't do grants for the signs, but we'll do them for trailers. In speaking with, our LEL through BOTS, our law enforcement liaison, he said, yeah, we've done it before. We've done it for other counties. I can help you write a grant to get a speed trailer. So he actually just today sent me, a draft, grant wording for it. But what it would be doing is we're gonna use it as a tool, obviously, not only to collect traffic data, but hopefully to reduce speed in certain areas, certain hotspots that we designate through, community maps, which is based off of our crash data. So we can create maps on community maps showing where the hotspots are, where our likely crashes are. We can filter it down to the crashes are a result of speed, which is what our target area is gonna be. So it's a reimbursement grant. And, the initial cost for the speed trailer, I was quoted at was $13,456. Again, reimbursement grants, we gotta buy the equipment up front. What I'm being told is we'll likely be requested to do a 10% match on that, and the match can be in kind. So, administration of the grant, data collection, transportation and setup of the trailer, we can track all that and submit that as our match. So, out of pocket, the goal is for it to, at the end, cost us nothing. We have to make that initial investment, but hopefully we'll get everything back.
Do we know where that initial investment money would come from?
My intention is to take that from new equipment. I do have enough money in new equipment right now, to purchase, with the hope that the reimbursement then could be reapplied back to new equipment.
Which probably wouldn't happen until next year. Because by the time you do this, get it done, and the state cuts you a check.
Yeah. So unless there's another funding source I can come up with, that's what my initial thought was.
I look down the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's always looking down the table.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right,
You hear us?
Can you hear us, Steve?
I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. Good deal. Thank you for coming on. Dave had to leave, and we have a few items left to close out the meeting, so we appreciate your time on this.
So just comment.
You're welcome.
I get a number of requests from communities, where they say, we have a speed problem. On this stretch of road, it's terrible. We have a speed problem. Not only would this give me a measure, statistics will say that these speed trailers do reduce speed when they're placed. Additionally, it would give us that way to actually monitor it without having somebody there, because it'll do the traffic analytics. It will record speeds and times and all that. And with that purchase is the program, the software, where we can put it in a visual format.
Is there a monthly cost to this? Is this tied to the cell networks? You're pulling data, so you have to go to it to manually pull data.
Manually pulling data.
All right. So the question is, where is it going to get funding from at this point? And if you feel you've got it in your budget,
I do.
the question is if you're going to get it back in time. So if he gets it back within this calendar year, can that go back into his line item? Okay. So now that we have quorum, Steve, what we're talking about is a grant for a speed trailer, a trailer that shows speed indications and records data. The sheriff's department would like to apply for the grant. They have to spend the money first, and then they would get reimbursed for that. 10% match and in-kind match is acceptable. That's people's hours and times and whatever else you can come up with, to make it connect to that. Any questions?
Sounds like a good idea.
All right.
Couple questions.
Yes.
It says on here may be eligible, so is it pretty much a guarantee that you receive this money? What happens if we outlay that money and then? get
So
denied?
it's, what I'm told is that the money is there and I'll probably get it. And then that's, my understanding is, so, the funding source is, it's actually a federal funding source. Feds, NHTSA gives the money to the states to do traffic enforcement, basically to reduce crashes, right?
Right.
You get this pot of money, reduce crashes. The state then in turn goes around and funds like the traffic deployments that we do, speed grants, ODI grants, that sort of thing. Not every community that's afforded that money takes it. So now there's this extra pool of money that needs to be spent
So you'll be told that you get the grant
before I purchase.
before you purchase. So he'll be notified that, yes, you have it, go ahead and purchase it, you can buy it, and then he'll get it. I think that's your question was.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Yep.
Second question is you said you collect data, you'll set the trailer up, you collect this data. Then what happens? Is that information given to the state and then possibly change speed limits, that kind of thing?
So what I had thought initially was that the state would be looking for that data in return. It doesn't sound like that's the case. So it'd be for us to use to either, confirm that, yeah, we do have an issue with speed in this area and we need to step up enforcement, or no, it's not as bad as it's being reported. And then we can maybe then go in turn and share that with the community.
We also have the highway safety meetings too, that we would share that information
Yeah.
with the state, and they could look at possibly looking to reduce speed limits if that's warranted in those areas.
And the highway safety meeting is a county meeting.
Yep, and it's a quarterly meeting. We actually just had one last week, which is where he wanted, Trace Frost, our LEL, through bots, wanted it discussed and, but kind of a general consensus that it was a good idea from that committee, which is, we did last week. Additionally, thinking, when we're sitting at the highway shop talking about the possible uses, we actually thought, well, when Josh is out and has a major road project going somewhere, we can set this out ahead of his project and try and bring a little bit more awareness and getting people to slow down, leading up to a work project. Yeah. So.
All right, so at this point, then I'm looking for a motion to allow the sheriff's department to apply for the bots equipment grant. Julia makes a motion. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Great, seconds. Any more discussion?
Hey, Bob, one question.
Yes, sir.
There would be no penalty if we bought it. I think I've heard and understood most of the discussion. I just want to make sure there would be no penalty if we did not get the grant and we bought it early or for buying it early.
We will not buy it early. We will only purchase it once we know we have the grant approved.
Okay, perfect.
All right, all in favor, say aye. When opposed? Moving on, thank you. Item 12, discussion and possible action, approval of decommission and sales of emergency vehicle. Mike had to go.
Mike had it on the way out. Requested that we table
Okay, all right,
that.
that'll be tabled for the next
And-
meeting.
I think 13 goes right along with it.
Okay, and table 13 then also. 14, discussion possible action, Deputy Director of Emergency Service Management position. Guess that's also going to be tabled.
Probably table.
All right,
Although if there's any questions about what I do, would be doing as a deputy, I can field those. It's an extensive list of different.
yeah, I think that's something that we'll
Yeah,
have Michael
yes.
discuss. And
So brief him on that.
yeah, we can bump that earlier in the meeting too. 15, correspondence. Any correspondence? I have no correspondence. 16, future agenda items. We've talked about a couple, obviously some items tabled we will bump forward to the next meeting. Anything else the committee wants on the agenda?
Hey, Bob, I've got a question on, when you got a minute.
Yes, go ahead.
I think the safety committee meets quarterly. I would like to bring up that intersection again. We had another accident down there last Friday night, Highway 60 in County T by the port. Some of them feel that, and I did contact Josh. I know they've been busy. Part of it may be related to not getting the grass mowed back when you're leaving from the south side headed across. So I don't know if the safety committee can put that on their agenda next time, or if that'd be more, I don't know what we can do down there, but we're averaging sometimes 2 to 3 a month accidents at that intersection.
Go ahead, Sheriff.
For the committee, you're referencing, where County T intersects 60, right?
Yep.
Okay, and that is a regular, discussion. I would say we probably haven't discussed it at the last one, maybe 2 meetings.
Last one that I looked at, this last one before that we did discuss that
Okay.
intersection.
And it continues to be a discussion, because I think they need to do like a grade reduction or something to the west.
Yep.
To reduce that knoll. We have discussed that quite a bit. And I don't know when that will receive attention for repair. In my head, I think when the bridge is replaced, that's probably a good time to tackle it. But when that is going to take place is going to be up to DOT. So
Yeah, that's been pushed back, as we all know, but I talked with the engineer that's on, for DOT gentleman that's on our fire department, and I think if we start using the safety language, we may be able to get that. Maybe we can knock that. If we got to wait till 27 or 28, we're talking 4 more years. People just seem to be driving faster and faster and less attention as they drive. So
I do believe the traffic data supports making changes there. If I remember from the last time I was with the engineer who attends the highway safety meetings, it sounds like the crash data supports a change there. So
Yep, I would agree. Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Any other future agenda items? Hearing none, item number 17. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Julie makes a motion, looking for a second. Greg seconds. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Thank you very much. So we will be meeting at the jail for a quick jail tour. Everybody's interested? We had a tight time frame. All right.
10 minutes. I'll be back in next week.
Okay, all right.
I mean,
Well, you know it though, too. That's right. You're spending time in the jail.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Thank
Stay
you,
safe.
Steve.